There's an unspoken rule in both religion and politics. Everyone loves a convert, but absolutely hates a defector. If you've ever expressed a single doubt about your church's theology, or if you've decided to step away entirely, someone has likely slapped you with the label of apostate. They hurl Bible verses at you, warning you about the dangers of the great falling away, or try to convince you that your questions are a sign of a hardened, wicked heart. But a recent message from a viewer completely flips this script on its head. What if the falling away isn't about the people leaving the building, but about the institution itself, losing its connection to what it means to be human? For decades, the standard institutional narrative has been simple. The church is the exclusive sanctuary of truth, and stepping outside the lines means falling into spiritual decay. But let's look at the actual reality of the modern religious landscape. Our viewer in Texas lives in the shadow of one of the largest megachurches in the world, and they described an exhaustion so many people feel. The theatrics, perfectly timed stage lighting, and high-tech corporate showmanship. All this can completely overstimulate you. The message gets buried under the performance. The reality is that when a religious system prioritizes its own structural power and theatrical production over basic human empathy, the life energy flows right out of it. You didn't walk away because you stopped caring about the truth. You stepped away because you realized the container was no longer holding any substance. When an institutional system feels its grip slipping, it naturally reaches for biblical verses to fire at people changing their minds. Let's look at a few and see what they really have to say. 1 Timothy 4 verse 1 warns that in latter times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons. This is used to imply that you've been intellectually hijacked by dark forces. But if you read the very next lines of the text, Paul is correcting a highly specific local pastoral issue. A faction of the early church trying to enforce a particular sexual ethic and strict diets on a community. Taking a hyper-local warning about ancient dietary rules and applying it to your honest, ethical and intellectual doubts today is a massive misdiagnosis. It's something like prescribing someone a Panadol for a broken arm just because you saw it relieve a mild headache. Then there's Hebrews chapter 6 verses 4 to 6. Traditional circles weaponize this as a cosmic threat, a warning that if you step out of line, God's grace carries an expiration date. But this text isn't a threat. It speaks to human maturity. Once your eyes have been opened to genuine love, spiritual freedom, and intellectual clarity, forcing yourself back into a fear-based cage and pretending it still fits is destroying the soul. The truth, once seen, simply cannot be unseen. Your deconstruction isn't a tragic slide into darkness. It's the natural evolutionary shifting of a mind that has outgrown a restrictive environment. This collapse of old frameworks is something that was mapped centuries ago. Emanuel Swedenborg wrote that when we replace internal love and practical charity with rigid institutional control, religion falls apart of its own accord. He describes this as a consummation or judgment. It dies from the inside out. According to Swedenborg, the true deceitful spirit in religion isn't an individual asking honest questions. The reality is that the pews aren't emptying because of a random wave of demonic rebellion. The old structure is crumbling because its internal foundation has dried up. It echoes Jesus' parable of the new wine and the old wineskins. the old container shatters and the wine spills out. When you attempt to force an evolving, deeper human understanding of love and freedom into antiquated, rigid, legalistic structures, both are ruined and lost in a state of utter corruption. Stepping away from that wreckage isn't an act of spiritual desertion. It's a necessary act of deep intellectual honesty and self-preservation. Seen from this perspective, you are not a spiritual fugitive. You're stepping out of a hollow shell to preserve the living spark of the divine within you. God does not reside in the multi-million-dollar stadium lighting or the performative metrics of a corporate church machine. God is found wherever ordinary human beings are learning to be genuinely good and caring for one another. You don't need a high-tech stage to connect with reality. Sometimes a quiet chat on a park bench is all the sanctuary your soul actually needs. I want to turn the floor over to you. If you've made the difficult choice to step away from a high control or high production religious environment, did you feel like you were falling away? Or did it feel like you were finally waking up to what it means to be human? I'm David, and this is our third place, a porch where we use reason to re-examine the texts that have hurt us, moving past rigid dogmas to find a healthier, more honest path forward. Thanks for watching.